Hi everybody, Dan Illman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets. Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, special coverage of the world's richest horse race, the $20 million Saudi Cup. It's carded as race number 8 at King Abdulaziz in Saudi Arabia on Saturday. Approximate post time here on the East Coast, 12:35. Let's take a look at this field. We've got a Kentucky Derby winner in the field, Mike. Mandalone, it's finally been resolved. Mandalone is the winner of the Kentucky Derby. He leads the American contingent, and it's a pretty good one with Midnight Bourbon and Country Grammar and Art Collector. We have Schriff, last year's defending champion, dealing from a far outside post position, but he's an international star in his own right.
Yeah, I mean, he did run pretty well in winning this race last year. And, I guess it's, sort of a feather in his cap, Dan Schriff's cap, that he was able to keep a pretty solid pace within range on the main track in this race last year. So that's a good sign for him. We'll see if he comes back and runs as well this year, because it feels like, listen, Mandalone may still have his best races ahead of him. Perhaps that's even true of Midnight Bourbon as well. But it feels like maybe these American horses aren't as good as the ones that were over here last year.
Let's talk a little bit about Country Grammar, and we're going to take this field in post position order. He is the number 3. It's been an interesting road to the Saudi Cup for Country Grammar. When he was a 3-year-old with Chad Brown and he won the Peter Pan, he just acted like the sort of horse that was going to get better as he got older. And he ran very well for Bob Baffert in 2 starts after being purchased for $110,000 at public auction. Let's watch his second start for Baffert. This is the Hollywood Gold Cup. Antonita back at the end of May. And he's in trouble here. Royal Trip on the outside, very sharp horse for Dick Mandela, but Country Grammar's just going to find another gear in the final 1/8 of a mile and get his head down in front. Now, after this race, he was transferred to Todd Pletcher. They wanted to run him in the Suburban. He got sick. They wanted to run him in the Whitney. He came down with an ankle injury. That sidelined him for the rest of the year. Lo and behold, he's back with Baffert. He was invited to this race.
Yeah, none of those things that happened to him the second half of last year are necessarily positives, Dan. We'll see if Baffert has him ready to go here. I suspect shipping him, halfway around the world for $20 million. I'll suspect that he's going to be ready to go here in this race. His 2 starts for Baffert were fine last year. I wasn't blown away by either one of them. But he ran fine. He earned competitive figures for those races, and he's got really good tactical speed. There's plenty to like about this horse.
Post position 2. Number 1 is Aero Trem. This horse is from South America, Brazilian bred, racing in Uruguay, and we're going to watch his most recent race. This is a Group 1 effort at 1.25 miles, and he's got some work to do turning into the stretch. But once he drops down to the inside, Mike, he comes with a very strong kick. This horse has won half of his 22 lifetime starts.
Yeah, this is a good performance going 1.25 miles. The race did set up really well for him. There was a good pace going on. You can see that leader there in the stretch is totally stopping here. And this is a closer's race, Dan. They're going to come and run 1, 2, 3 from the back of the pack in this race. Aero Trem got a really nice and patient ride. They just sat back. They saved a ton of ground with this horse. He came through on the inside, and he stays very gamely to the end. No idea how the competition over there stacks up with horses like this, but this horse is in good form.
The consistent Midnight Bourbon is up next. Post position 3, number 8. And just look at the loads of minor awards from last year. 3rd in the Clark, 2nd in the Pennsylvania Derby, 2nd in the Travers, 2nd in the Preakness. He would have been 3rd in the Haskell if he didn't go down. And he was beaten by Mandalone. I thought on the square in his seasonal debut, the Grade 3 Louisiana, he made an easy lead. Yes, he tried very hard, but Mandalone got the better of him.
Yeah, Midnight Bourbon tries hard at every one of his starts. You can't argue that point about him. He's a hard trying horse. It's just also really hard to make excuses for him, Dan. I mean, he's had several trips in these races that you just ran down where he settled for either 2nd or 3rd, where he just had no excuse. The paces weren't that fast. He was in control, And he was not good enough to hold on at the end. That was certainly the case last time where, Asmussen went to blinkers and Lasix, and it made absolutely no difference. Off the layoff, Mandalone still ran him down.
Real World is up next. I think this is a fascinating entrant for Godolphin and the great Frankie Dettori, because this horse has never won on dirt. Yet in his last 5 starts, he has excelled on the turf. Was it the turf? Was it simply a situation where they took the blinkers off and they put cheek pieces on? He just seems like a different horse, but he does seem like a turf horse.
Yeah, I thought it was the turf. I guess we'll find out more about him here. It's not like, his dirt races from early last year. It's not like they're terrible, but they're not nearly as good as his turf form. He's bred to be a turf horse. He really upped his game on that surface. He's a hard horse for me to get behind as they switch him back to dirt in this race, but it'd probably be a fair price if you like him.
Carrying the local hopes is the number 4, Emblem Road. He is 40-1 on our morning line. This horse has run 8 times in Saudi Arabia, 6 wins, 1 second, 1 third. Gotta think this is a humongous jump up in class.
I mean, it feels like it is. You can't knock. He's another one. You can't really knock his overall form. All he does is show up and run. The horse that he defeated last time, Great Scott, was 3rd in this race last year behind Schriff. So I guess that's a quality performance from this horse. It still feels like this is supposed to be too tough for him.
It's now a 4-race win streak for Mandalone, oddly enough. 2 of those races coming via disqualification, the Kentucky Derby and the Haskell. He looked good off the layoff. Brad Cox had him ready in the prep for the Saudi Cup in the Grade 3 Louisiana. Florent Giroux put him in a loose pocket behind Midnight Bourbon. He went after that horse, and I like that he had to work a little bit. It wasn't an easy race off the layoff. He figures to have gained a lot of conditioning from that race. A 1.125 just looks very good for him.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that stuff, Dan. And it does, it also just sort of feels like he probably still has his best races in front of him. So listen, there's plenty to like. I can't sit here and say that I've been Mandalone's biggest fan since the start of his career. And he's likely to go favorite in this race, which sort of made me start looking elsewhere for horses that I wanted to maybe pick or bet, but he's probably the horse to beat.
The 5 Magni Quartz. I wonder if this horse wants a little bit more distance. He's been mostly a turf and synthetic horse in his career, but the one time he ran on dirt, he ran pretty well. Let's go back to the 2021 Dubai World Cup, where he's going to finish 3rd behind Mystic Guide, who at that point in time was America's top-ranked older horse, and Chua Wizard, a pretty good Japanese runner. Magni Quartz gets going just a little bit too late in this race, and he kind of clunks up for 3rd.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He's going to pick up a pretty nice check here at the end, but he's only going to get 3rd in the very late stages as that horse down on the rail there, who was the pace setter, he just totally stops finding here. Magni Quartz is going to get up for 3rd, but ultimately, Dan, his trip wasn't that bad, and he didn't necessarily do a ton of running.
Fresh off 2 victories in the Breeders' Cup. They usually dominate the international races at the Hong Kong. They're the Japanese horses, and I think you have to watch out for them in this year's edition of the Saudi Cup. Up next is the 13, Sho Kings, and we're going to watch his most recent start. This is the major Group 1 race in Japan with dirt horses, the Champions Cup, and he's kind of over and behind horses, and now he's going to get out. And once he does, he finishes this race off very strongly. The time came back pretty fast. This is a horse that loves a 1.125.
Yeah, it's a great distance for him. He's just so handy, Dan. When you go back and watch the full replay of this race, they got the position they wanted with him. He was very comfortable in behind horses, just waiting for somewhere to go. And then once they got clear, you saw how easily he won there. Another horse, I guess you could, argue that he's going to just be facing much tougher competition here. I guess that's probably true. His overall form is very good, though, and I just love the way he goes. He's got a very handy style. I can see a good trip coming for him here.
And there's a chance this pace might be quick because Art Collector is in here and he likes to be forward. We know Midnight Bourbon has a good amount of early speed. Art Collector, when Bill Mott first got his hands on him, he reeled off 3 races in a row, including a gate-to-wire victory in the Grade 1 Woodward. Now, in the Breeders' Cup Classic, he was on the chase against Knicks Go, and it just didn't work out. But he's going to be forward, and he is unbeaten at 9 furlongs.
Yeah, it's a great distance for him, too. I guess you sort of have to try to get past the Breeders' Cup, I suppose. I get that he was chasing a superior horse in Knicks Go, but that pace wasn't fast. And this horse did not run well in that race. And listen, his first 3 starts for Mott were all stakes wins, but they were stakes wins with one soft trip after another, Dan. And it feels like he's probably going to do some chasing again in this race. I could go either way on him. I'm not, he's another one. I'm not his biggest fan, but if he was a huge price, I guess I could try to get him in there somewhere.
While Emblem Road is arguably the top miler in Saudi Arabia, the number 6 Making Miracles is probably the top stayer. He's won his last 3 races, but those races have come at either 1.25 miles or 1.5 miles. So not only is he taking a giant step up in class against this truly international field, but he's racing at a sharp 1.1 miles.
Yeah, he just seems like a distance specialist, and that worried me about him here, Dan. He's another horse. His recent form is very, very good, but it feels like he's stepping way up in class here, and he's probably going shorter than he wants to go.
The number 11, Seal Away, attracts the great jockey Ryan Moore, and he's been of an underappreciated turf horse. He was a Group 1 winner as a 2-year-old in France. He won the Champion Stakes last year, beating Schriff on the turf at Ascot. The major question here is dirt. It's the great unknown.
Yeah, it is, and it's unfortunate because, you know, he looks like a pretty talented horse, and he's still relatively lightly raced, so you can project upside for him too. He ran really, really well in the Champion Stakes in his final start last year. He's had a good trip, but that was a nice performance from this horse. I don't know if he can handle dirt, Dan, but I know that he's talented enough to beat this field.
I wonder about the 1.1 miles for our next entrant, the 12, Secret Ambition, a horse that won the 2021 Godolphin Mile and made his first start since that race, and the race we'll show you right now. This is the Al Maktoum Challenge, going 1 mile in Dubai. He has every chance in here, Mike. He's just going to fall a little bit short, running second. And all in all, off the lengthy layoff, it was a good performance. I just didn't think this was a very strong field he was in against.
Yeah, me either. And, you know, listen, I suppose there's a way to look at it and say, you know, they had designs on this race going 9 furlongs. And so this was, you know, sort of a stepping stone for him just to get a good blow out of him. But he had no excuse in this race, Dan, and he's facing a much tougher field this time over a distance he may not want to go.
The number 14 is March Lorraine, who pulled off a stunner for Team Japan in the Breeders' Cup Distaff against fellow fillies and mares. Let's watch March Lorraine. This was a blazing pace up front that cooked the big favorite Latruska and the other leaders. But to March Lorraine's credit, she kind of moved a little early on the turn, and the closers just never got to her, although it looks like everyone's got a shot here.
They all got a shot at her. She's just going to stay on enough to hold on at the end. But you're right, Dan. The pace was there for her. Overall, she got a really, really good trip in this race. But as you've already pointed out, she moved pretty early around that second turn. She was already on the lead at the quarter pole. And then she just had to stay, and stay she did.
Schriff completes the horses in the body of the field. There are 2 also eligibles in this race. He's going to have to deal with an outside post position, but this is just a good horse. It doesn't matter the surface. He won the French Derby in 2020. Here he is winning the Saudi Cup in 2021, and this is a nice horse that he runs down. Charlatan is a horse that had a lot of speed. Maybe 1.1 miles was pushing it a bit for Charlatan, but Schriff engages him and eventually gets the better of him. And then after this race, talk about a double. He wins the Saudi Cup. He then switches to turf. He wins the Dubai Shima Classic. And later that fall, in the summer, he would win the Juddmonte International on turf. He's all class.
Yeah, he's just a really classy horse. Good performance here, too. You know, ultimately, I would say, you know, perhaps Charlatan ran the best race there last year because he had to deal with Nick's Go first, and then he just couldn't hold off Schriff over a distance that might be a little too far for him. But let's not take anything away from this horse who, you know, that was a fast pace in this race last year. He kept relatively close to it, and he just stayed at the end to get the job done. He doesn't change leads in the stretch, which I do not like about him. But, man, he's just such a good horse.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the $20 million Saudi Cup. And I'm having a little bit of remorse not using your horse, Mike. You know I fancy the Japanese runners quite a bit. Sho Kings, I think, is better than March Lorraine. I think he's the best dirt horse in Japan. And I think he stacks up with these. Give him a pace. He's going to kick.
Yeah, I just liked his most recent start in particular, Dan. And I just sort of didn't want the favorites in here. You know, maybe I'll ultimately prove to be wrong about that. And Mandalone and Schriff will be too good for these horses. I wanted somebody else, and I liked this horse's last race.
I'd like to see Mandalone break out on his own. Thus far, he's been known as kind of a lucky winner with a couple of DQ victories, one in the Derby, one in the Haskell. His tactical speed might serve him well if the pace is solid. I would expect him maybe to try to get the jump on the true closers turning for home. 13,793 for Mike, 7,839 for me, the $20 million Saudi Cup. Good luck.